think that just like nursing, just like being a teacher, cops should have a 4-year degree. On top of that, I don't know about you guys. Of course, you got your field is a little bit different than mine as far as education, but when I went to clinicals and when you did your psych rotation, when you do your GYM rotation, when you do your elderly rotation, those moments you are open into a new world. I don't work in psych. Well, sometimes I do, but in general, I don't work in psych. But my clinical taught me like, oh, wow, these people are just like me. They just had a moment, you know, these people are just like me, but they just had this, or these elderly people are like my grandmother. So it makes you more empathetic. So that's the same thing with officers. You cannot take these officers out of environments where they never had to care about Black people, never had to care about people that were poorer than them, throw them into that environment and say, hey, be fair, boom. Also, you get paid more if you do this, boom. And it's like you're asking them something that's almost impossible. Whereas like a clinical rotation, having them to actually, which should be, because you asking them to deliver babies in back seats. Okay, send them in a hospital for 6 months. You know what I mean? Send them in a psych for 6 months. Let them learn and grow and let open their world, open their mind to people that are different than them. I never would have been who I am today as a nurse without those couple years of clinical rotations and seeing all different types of people in different settings. We would literally sit on the psych ward and just talk to the patients, sit in the nursing home and just talk to the patients. You get to really see them as a whole, like just like you, just with a different situation than you. So it's like, how can you expect these officers that have less than a year of training to all of a sudden have this empathy for people that they don't understand or don't know? So it's just like, I don't understand how we give nurses and doctors and teachers all of this education and all of this preparation, and meanwhile our ability to kill someone is still there, but at a way lesser level than somebody that's holding deadly weapons and pointing them at people every time they get a little threatened.
Yeah, no. So Sheena, I think what you're saying is valuable, and it's challenging, right? So this is where a few moments ago we were talking about policy, right? So why is it that as a BSN or an RN or an NP or MD, all the letters that exist within healthcare, we're required to have continuous education, or we're required to have board certification, right? It's because there's a policy in place. And it says if you don't rotate, or if you don't continue to keep up with the literature, well, we're not going to recertify you, right? So I don't know exactly what the requirements are to be an officer. And I would potentially suspect that for different jurisdictions, it's different, right? So there is no one just uniform body for police officers. There is one uniform body for the healthcare profession in terms of physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners. And so this is where, if there was some kind of implementation of a policy to say, you know what, instead of, so I used to be in Atlanta, instead of the Atlanta PD getting 12 hours of behavioral health, lectures, which is actually more hours than some other districts, we're going to make it that Atlanta PD, New York PD, everybody gets 24 hours of behavioral health learning and understanding, and has to show competency in the behavior, right? Or has to show competency in labor and delivery, or has to show competency in verbal de-escalation, right? Right now, I don't. Again, I'm not a police officer. I'm not saying that their job is easy by no stretch of the imagination. But what would be interesting to understand is, well, what exactly are the specific educational requirements to attain a badge for your force? And what are the measures in place to continue retaining your badge in your force, right? If we could then see that, and then we can make policy changes or recommendations, those could be enforced. Because now, if you didn't keep up with the educational platform, or if you didn't keep up with rotations, we can say, well, sir, ma'am, unfortunately, you haven't. We're going to take your badge, we're going to take your firearm, and until you meet those requirements, you can't get back. It's the same thing that happens to me. If I don't recertify, I am no longer a board certified psychiatrist, and I can't necessarily practice medicine the way that I would want to, right? So we have organizations and bodies that say, okay, is Atalo, is Yativi, is Kevin practicing appropriately? And if I'm not, someone can file to the board and say, please investigate Dr. Simon.
So
right?
one of the things that disturbs me, not necessarily. So that's one way of handling it, and I
Right.
believe in policy. I understand its inner workings, and I think that the more we have that civic engagement, the more we can make demands or particularly change what the standard is. But it doesn't do much for the bystanders. It doesn't do much for what the people who experience and witness this stuff are being held to, and we don't state expectations for that, which is what bothers me.
Right.
Like, we don't do upstander training enough. We don't teach. And when I speak of upstander training, I'm talking about the ability to recognize microaggressions, the ability to recognize when there's a clear bias at play. We don't do that enough. And it shouldn't just be in fields like healthcare, where we tend to, deal with patients. And I know most of us have had to go through implicit bias training and stuff like that. But I think that once you extend that, not just to healthcare, but to talking to other officers and saying, I'm being an upstander, you handled that wrong. Or among community members who can acknowledge when a point happens in their surrounding where they could see a clear microaggression or an implicit bias at play. That type of upstander training can benefit communities as a whole. And I'd like to see more of that in terms of policy pushing, because at the end of the day, if you're talking about trauma, it's built from these daily interactions. It's built from having these smaller, unnoticed, unaddressed chronic problems that make people feel like they are less than or more worthless than before. So until there's a broad approach to training people to call out this wrongdoing, like as a conscious effort, then I think we're going to continue to miss the ball.
Right. And one of the things, Ellen, you had asked the question about why is it that we sometimes respond the way that we do in certain circumstances. And as Atala was talking, I was thinking about psychological terms. And one of them is displacement. And so that is, if I'm in my office or you're at your set, right? And someone, it does something that is a little bit of a microaggression. And because I'm in the office, I know I can't respond the way that I want to. You hold on to that. And then you get another microaggression and you hold on to that. Then you get another micro, and then you hold on to that. When you leave the office or you leave your workplace and now you're at home and your significant other says something that they didn't mean you any harm by, but you heard it the wrong way, all of a sudden the wrath comes out towards them because you're not in the office anymore. And all those emotions you had about all those microaggressions are coming out towards the person that you did not mean. And that's what we would call displacement. So honestly, a lot of times that happens where you see people responding in ways you're like, wait a minute, like, why is that happening? Like, why here? Why at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods are you arguing, right? Like, you're just in line. But it's because people are experiencing these things all the time. And then when they get this space to let out and think to themselves that, oh, I'm just at the grocery store, it comes out and it's so inappropriate that people are like, man, like you're really mad. And it's like, oh, well, I've been holding on to this like frustration for so long that it gets displaced in the wrong place.
I pray for the person that get caught. That was the day. Today was still day. Today I had time, and that's real. Like, there's so many times in nursing that like I had to stop myself and say, don't respond, because you're going to be considered the angry Black woman. Don't respond because they're going to claim you as aggressive, even though I wasn't right. Even though that person was being disrespectful, even though I had, I was advocating for my patient or doing what I was supposed to do, you have to stop. So by the 10th time, somebody gonna get that work. It is what it is. Like, sometimes on that 10th time, I'm gonna let it out. And that person looking at me like, wow. And that's why, again, what Ellen said, it's about empathy, because if I had people behind me on those occasions having my back, then I wouldn't have got to the 10th time. Then by the 10th time, I would have maybe had a little bit more patience because I wasn't alone in my struggle. I wasn't alone with my trauma. But when you're alone with your trauma, with those microaggressions over and over, when it comes out, it comes out. And then everybody looking at you like, well, why does she respond that way? Or she's crazy, or she's this, or she's that. But it's sometimes the reaction that's been waiting inside of you.
Right. And one of the things that happens, Black, brown, white communities, is we adults and even sometimes adolescents have these like maladaptive ways of responding to the stressors of life, right? So that's where, again, I work in the substance use field. You will have people kind of, having a little bit more than 2 glasses of wine at night, and that turns into drinking. You got people that engage in different various forms of substance use. And it literally could be that they're trying to manage things that they don't understand, the stressors that they don't understand, the anxiety. Why am I feeling down? So you're feeling down, so you want an upper. You're feeling up, you want a downer, right? So oftentimes I meet folks and they don't really even understand how it is that their use got so problematic where now it's impacting their ability to work. They got a DUI. They're unable to get to work on time. A lot of times there are scenarios where folks will try earnestly to fix their own problems, and they unfortunately they go to the wrong things. And in certain communities, there's a lot of corner stores, there's a lot of liquor stores, right? Those things are readily available. There isn't just a therapist on every corner, but there is a liquor store on every corner. So all these things together play a role in how trauma exists and persists in certain communities.
Like a fungus that just sort of grows and grows. So can we talk about now, as physicians and going through medical school, what would you give to young Black and brown people in medical school or in their internship or in their residency or if they're attendings? How do you deal with your trauma in the workplace? And what advice would you give to young people who want to pursue a career in medicine, who want to be in the healthcare space? What can we say to them to encourage them? Because we know we need more Black physicians. We know we need more Black people in healthcare and administratively also, or policy will never get written and things will never change. How do we inspire our young people to want to be in this space?
So I can start there. First of all, I think conversations like what we're having right now are huge. There are three amazing, incredible physicians, incredible nursing staff, one of the best known physician on television in Ellen out here promoting our work. And this topic, right now, there are 5% of physicians across the country who are Black, about 2.5 Black men. And you mentioned internship, residency, attendings, Ellen, but it starts all the way back in grade school. Like, who are the people that folks are seeing as physicians? Maybe we should have all been wearing our white coats so people can see like the true, like the MD look, but this is what a doctor looks like. There's a huge campaign called #WhatADoctorLooksLike, #BlackMenInMedicine. And we're all just trying to change that narrative to remind people that we are out here in these streets and our conference rooms and whatever various platform we're in all these different fields. There are Black OBGYN, surgeons, psychiatrists, and emergency room docs, as you see. I think your question, Ellen, about how to handle trauma, though, is such an important one. I think a lot of my residency was spent watching the experience of Eric Gardner, which was the last video that I could bring myself to watch related to a police-related murder. And that experience of seeing that video one day and then walking into the hospital the next day for business as usual, taking care of patients in the ICU, driving to my clinic to see patients was so traumatic. And I think I can probably speak for my brothers on the call and for Sheena as well, or others who are practicing, that you probably all felt that as well. But it really did take having a community, having a set group of individuals outside of my family as well at the hospital who I can have these conversations with. And we started a social justice group within our residency to really make sure that we're moving these conversations forward. So I think having that community is huge. I think not remaining silent is another important point. And again, Ellen, you allowing us this platform to have this conversation is so critical, because we can't pretend that it's not happening. We can't pretend it's not affecting our communities and affecting us who practice every day. And then always remembering that this is not new. Like, we've been seeing these stories from the 1968, 1918, 1800s. Like, this is not new, and we're just the newest generation to try and tackle it. And I'm hopeful, again, like your 11-year-old daughter, that or when I have a kid one day and they're 11, that they're not having to worry about these same issues anymore.
Right. Yeah, I think, I just agree with everything your TV's just said. In reference to ways in which to get more, Black and brown kids into healthcare, yeah, it does start early because you just learn. So again, I'm a child psychiatrist. I often hear how kids are either described, or it'll be so early, 6, 7 years old, and you're talking about, I don't like math, or I don't like I'm not smart. Like, what, you don't even know what you are or are not yet. Yet you can immediately, they're saying these things, and so I often tell parents, like, you no, like, when you hear that, you have to really combat that. And so from a very early age, I'm talking to parents about how you model behavior and then you reward effort. A lot of times we're in we get gold stars and stickers because they got an A, right? It actually, all three of us and all four of us that are in healthcare didn't all get A's all the time. And it's actually a lot of effort that goes into it. So I tell parents, I'm like, no, we need to reward the effort that was put in, because when they are in high school and they got to take that SAT or ACT, or got to take that MCAT, LSAT, they're going to need some fortitude and really be encouraged about how to maintain strong effort and will to continue going, because we only learn from mistakes. So the fact that your son or daughter gets a B or a C doesn't mean that they're not smart. No, it means that they have a lot of opportunity to grow. But a lot of times we misconstrue and we want, oh, they're on all AP classes. It's like, no, that's, they need to play sports. They need to make mistakes. They need to have experiences where they see the world. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't see what it's like to be on the other side of the country, right? So I tell parents, like, you got to give your kids as many experiences as possible, so that way when I am talking to a patient, and I've had this experience where it's a 13-year-old Hispanic male, and I'm like, what is it that you kind of want to do? What do you think? Nothing's wrong. There's no wrong answer, but what do you think? And I literally get people telling me, I don't know. I'm like, okay, do you want to live in Iowa? Do you even know where Iowa is? Like, you have to talk to your kids about all the possibility that is there. And so
one of the
healthcare, yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I was gonna say, one of the things that I like that you just mentioned is this transparency, and I think that is huge, particularly for Black kids and Black young people who are trying to find that identity. They want someone who they can relate to, and they want to hear the transparency in the narratives. When you tell that Black child that's thinking about going into a STEM field that, hey, I struggled on this too, or, I love listening to hip hop music, I love rap music, but I'm also a doctor. Or you tell them, like, I know what it's like to have a friend that died when I was young. I know what it's like to lose a parent. I know what it's like to be raised in certain types of environments. Breaking that part down kind of allows them to unlock the reality that they can have negative and positive experiences and still have an optimal future. Right. So part of it for me has been being extremely transparent. When I sit in front of a classroom of people and I talk about what that pathway was like for me to get through medicine, I don't hold back. I tell them about all the lows. I tell them about the valleys. I tell them about the highs. I tell them about who I met along the way. I tell them about every single hurdle that I hit and then the ones that I cleared. And then I come back and I tell them, you know what? I still put on some trap music. I still listen to the artists that I love. And I still go in front of those patients who once called me monkey doctor and who told me that I look like the EKG technician or the x-ray technician. And then I give them the best of me because it's what I'm made of. It's in my DNA.
Sorry.
No, and you know what? So,
that's what I tell them.
It's true. You need to be transparent, and the other thing that I love to be able to do is oftentimes we have or kids, even adults, have a very narrow scope of what medicine is. Medicine is not only you got to cut somebody and there's blood all over the place. I'm fortunate enough, I'm a consultant to the NBA. right? When I tell kids that, they're like, oh my God, have you met this person? I'm like, well, I can't tell you if I did or have it, but I can tell you there are players, they get therapy, right? You got to be able to show that there are other ways in which your interest can be fused with medicine, and you can do those things together, right? So I like to play basketball. So I love the fact that I get to watch, and sometimes people ask me about questions, and they're professional athletes, right? Like I fuse all those things together, right? So trap music, you're ER doc, Atalo, right? And here it is, you do social medicine ER, you are on GQ, they're asking you about questions about, hey, what does it look like if in Scarface, this person got shot? Is that true? Is that not true? Right? You get to do that because you have a deep interest in one field and it's fused with the other field, right? When we're able to tell kids that, then their eyes light up, because then they're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know that, right? So I think
Y'all are
being
way
very
cooler than me, man. I don't think kids are gonna be excited about NPR. You know, I did an interview at the New York Times last week.
but it's all important. So although you know what, NPR is a great station, right?
They'll be excited about it,
The
man.
fact is, if you can show them a printout, right? Like, look, I was on the New York Times, right? That's exciting to them. Unfortunately, a lot of times we're unable, because of certain backgrounds, we're supposed to be professional, whatever professional is. And professional used to be this very square box, and you spoke a certain way. So Atal, you have dreads, right? There's a lot there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of brothers I know that when they were in med school were told to cut their dreads. Oh,
That's a fact.
Or I didn't have a beard when I went on interviews, because they were said, well, don't have a beard. You got to look clean shaven, right? So there's a lot of things that can be done. And I think, again, thank you for this platform where people can see, oh, wait a minute, you like basketball, you like football, you like art. You can do these things together. It's not just because you got all straight A's. Like that is so far from the truth, that kids just don't understand.
Well, and I think also, and I'm coming for the parents. I got to come for y'all a little bit, because I know I was pre-med, and then when I got to the part where I had to do the stuff, I said, oh, my parents ain't doing this, and no shade to them. But I just think that they're not college graduates. They didn't know the next step. They didn't know they always like, oh, my daughter gonna be a doctor, my granddaughter gonna be a doctor, my niece gonna be a doctor, but they had no clue how to get me there. So I think also as parents, if your child is expressing an interest in something, it is also your job to be just as interested as far as how they get there. You have to be hands-on and making sure, even if you don't have the finances, that you are on their tail about their education, the resources, scholarships, ways they can get there. Because there are plenty of Black doctors, white doctors, whoever, that do not have rich parents and do not have parents that did everything for them, but they figured it out through scholarships, financing, having good grades so they can get to that point or whatever it is. So I think that also as parents, I don't care if you didn't have a degree. That don't stop you from being able to research that for your child and pave the way for them. Be at everything that they need you to be. Be there before they get there. Have your mindset on what they need for their next steps before they get there. They told you they want to be a doctor at 10. Why are you just figuring it out at 19? No, let's go back here, you know what I mean? And be a little bit more proactive with our kids as far as whatever it is. We cannot just support our kids when it comes to certain fields that we glorify. We need to be with them and prepare them for any field that they want to go into, whether it's art, dance, basketball, whatever it is. You're not just always going to be the team mom. Sometimes it's going to be the science mom, or the things that, that benefit your child.
No, it's true. These are conversations that I'm having with parents all the time, and there just has to be planning and preparation. And so, just the same way, ideally for your health, for your finances, you're doing that. Okay, what are we doing? What are the plans? What are our goals for 1 year, 3 years out, 5 years out? You should be doing that for your kids. A lot of times, unfortunately, parents are just in parallel with their kids, learning on the fly. And so it's like, okay, they're 6 now. What do we want them to be doing when they're 9? Okay, how do we get them there? And you should be having strategic plans. Okay, they're 11. All right, what high school do you want them to go to? How are we going to get them there? There should be these strategic plans that parents are having or guardians are having, and unfortunately, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And to your point about most folks don't, most folks who go into medicine do not have a medical doctor or grandparent or father or mother.
That's a fact.
And so the truth is, you do have to do your own education about, okay, what does this mean for us? Because I think a lot of times the things that are displayed on the media is like, oh my gosh, there's this like unsurmounting debt that you're going to be in. Okay, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate getting scholarships? What does that mean, right? You don't only have to get scholarships because you get all A's, right? There are other ways around it, right? So, there's scholarships for tennis.
To
right?
UTB's point earlier, though,
Yeah.
like that's a part of a pipeline that has to be developed, Ellen. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different points along that spectrum where we've not been able to patch up those leaks. I mean, I feel like that's what it's called, UTB.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the pipeline issue is huge, and I think it goes to back to the structures and the policies like we're talking about. Yes, we need mom and dad to help support their kids in school, but if mom and dad are working those 3 jobs because of the racist policies and structures, unfortunately, that this country is based in, they're not going to be able to provide that same support. Or if Joe, Frank, or Tim have made it all the way to pre-med and their advisors like, you know what, you're just not strong enough for this career. Why don't you go think about a different career other than medicine? You got one C in chemistry and we don't think you're cut out for it. It's like these kind of hits that people are taking along their journey that are disproportionately Black and brown in particular, that end up with the 5% of doctors that we're seeing. And so we do have to attack it in every way. Again, conversations like this, us being out in the streets, talking to the kids in middle schools and high schools about it. And of course, trying to figure out how to move beyond just the 5% of us who are both trying to tackle COVID-19 disparities, tackle racism as a public health issue, and trying to build up the pipeline. Sometimes that task can feel so insurmountable. But again, I think we need allies, bystanders, upstanders, whatever is the phrase that we're going to use to really put this message forward. And again, I know that Ellen, you guys are out here doing that for us.
Yeah, it's important. Obviously, what we see on TV, there are a lot of doctors that are our age and older, where honestly, like you ask them like who the doctor you knew, it'd be like from ER. The long-standing show. There's going to be a lot of med students. What are they watching? They're watching Grey's Anatomy, and so because they don't have those doctors that are around, so it's even important, like visually, who is
Very
represented on those shows, right? So a lot of people know Jesse Williams, right? Because he's the Black like plastic surgeon, and undoubtedly because he's on that show, there will
have some black plastic surgeons.
Right?
It's a fact.
Representation matters.
You'll be here at 6 o'clock tonight to watch the game. So we're going to toast to that. Sheena, we will toast.
You can call us back in if you want. I'm free all day.
I would definitely be watching the game. Nah, man, that's huge.
So this is going to air after. Sorry, Sheena, to interrupt you. This is going to air after, but no one's taking it from the Lakers. This is. Oh
yeah, no, it is y'all birthright right about now.
No one's taking it from them.
Y'all were made for this year.
So I just wanted to recap because I feel like, and I, as a Black woman, we talk to our girlfriends, we talk about our feelings. We're a little bit more open as far as like what we say and how we feel. And I know for me lately, I've been really trying to be more self-aware about my emotions, about my anxiety. I do check-ins where I'm like, sis, now you overreacted, calm down. What was really wrong? Is that real? Did you make it up? Did it really deserve that type of mental or emotional response? Like I check in with myself, and a lot of times it's due to things like Breonna Taylor's killers not getting any charge, like things like that. We don't think of it, but that whole week I'm like, why I'm so hot? Why I'm so annoyed? Why am I so, tired and fatigued? And you don't think of like the stressors that may be on you that you don't realize, and you'll have multiple days of anxiety or fatigue or depression and you don't realize it's happening. So please, for Black men, how can they do those check-ins? How can they make sure that they're addressing their traumas and having those moments instead of having those psychotic episodes where they explode and now their life is potentially threatened by whatever their explosion may have been?
I'll make my point brief. One of the things that has come in the runoff of COVID-19 is that we're forced to have interactions that we were not really familiar with, particularly using virtual platforms to have conversations. And you've seen brothers drift towards being able to have these conversations that they were normally trying to, it took forever for them to unpack. And now they are in a place where they can emote. They're in their homes. They're in a place of safety. They're talking to a friend, they're laughing, they're having a drink, they've got the game in the background. And so they're trying to recreate these moments. And it's happening in a place where you're talking to people who don't live down the street, but can live across the country. So these virtual platforms, and unfortunately, COVID-19 has put us in a position where we are reaching out and trying to have that interconnectivity in a way that we have never had before. So what I've seen is brothers being open to things like doing virtual yoga, or being open to having somebody come in and talk to them about their emotions and their feelings. And that is helpful. That is groundbreaking. And so what I'd say in sum is we have to continue to push brothers to interact. We have to continue to have very real conversations and create virtual safe spaces the same way that we would create physical ones. And then using the capital that exists in terms of our community and the ways that we interact as a true branching point. So using the language that we know, being able to talk about the things that make us happy and allow us to feel desired, wanted, and elevated. That to me seems to be like the next step.
Speaking for parents, Sheena and I both have sons who are around the same age. I know that, so my husband is my age, 50 years old, and isn't great at talking about feelings at all. And I catch him occasionally saying to my son, don't cry, you're okay. And I say to him, babe, it's okay for him to cry. We can't say that to him. So I think, and I said this before in with respect to, I think I said it at a Glisten event. I think we have to teach young boys. It's really imperative for us to teach young Black boys, period, whatever color they are, that it's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to show emotion. It's not a sign of weakness.
It doesn't make you soft.
It doesn't make you soft. And I know that's definitely something that we really need to push that message for any parents listening, for anybody who is raising young boys. It should be celebrated if they emote, if they show emotion, if they talk about emotion, if they talk about feelings. We can't celebrate that enough. That's really what we can't teach these boys to shove stuff down. It's not serving them well.
Well, and I think that those moments it teaches them how to handle their emotions, how to get coping mechanisms. They remember those moments. And I remember this distinct moment where my son was like freaking out. He was with my dad because he didn't want to take a nap. So my dad got on his level. My dad is 6'4". My son is just turned 4. He got on his level and he said, why don't you want to take a nap? And he's like, oh, because I want to play. And, I don't want to sit down and I want this and I want that. And my dad's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. You can lay down. He's like, then after you take a nap, then we're going to go ride a bike and we'll, eat whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. And my son was like, okay. And he laid his behind down and took a nap. And I think that those are those moments. Instead of spanking them, instead of getting angry, instead of yelling, and don't get me wrong, it's not easy. These kids is crazy sometimes, sometimes it's hard. But I think that giving them a moment to really explain their feelings. They have feelings too. They have emotions too. And a lot of times the kids that we consider bad are just the ones that have a whole bunch of emotion and intelligence that they're boxed in and they're trying to get it out, and we keep on giving them restrictions. So boundaries are great, but also giving them moments to express themselves and talk about why they're upset, instead of just saying, don't be upset. Why are you upset? What's making you upset? And let's figure out a way to cope with that feeling instead of just putting a lid on it.
Right. Yeah.
I appreciate you. Oh, sorry, bro. I was just going to say, I appreciate you, Ellen and Sheena, for sharing those stories because so one of our colleagues says that Black people don't have sanctuary. And so Rhea Boyd has been speaking about this in the healthcare system. Leah Wright Rigger has been speaking about it just more broadly. And so you can hear just from those stories, it starts at home sometimes where it's like, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that. We know that in school, Black kids are more likely to be suspended, more likely to be thought of as acting out and being bad, like you said. And again, that translates all the way through the hospitals where Black patients are being policed because they acted out. Like Sheena mentioned, if a nurse says, well, I think they're using something, I'm not sure what they brought in, calling the police into the room, and all of a sudden there's a whole altercation there. And it just gives this sense that Black people don't have sanctuary, they don't have a place to feel safe, a place to feel comfortable. And so I think, Atalo, to your point, I do agree that virtual spaces do offer people that opportunity to feel somewhat safe at home, though we sadly know just this summer that even being at home is not safer for some of us. And so I think we just need to continue to harp on that point. Think about what being safe feels like, what being safe means, just like that safest moment for you, sleeping in your bed at 2 a.m. before you hear that knock on the door. What does that mean for all of us? And how, again, does this all relate to the trauma that we've just been talking about for this whole time? I think that's such an important part of this. And I think the message of sanctuary and of safe spaces will really help to move this conversation that we're having beyond just the typical, it's the police, it's racism, it's XYZ, but we just want to feel safe. And I think that's so important.
We want to just feel like being Black is okay and that we can do normal things like run, like sleep, like go to school, like, you know, like everybody else and be normal. You know, I know that people always say, I don't see color. You need to.
Yes.
You need to. You need to know exactly who I am, and you need to know that that means nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
so much. You're missing so much if you don't see color. You're missing everything.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So I think I think this conversation as a whole is super healthy because I think that it was genius to put you three together. You know, you all had like really important points and really, you know, different perspectives that all tied in together. And no one can speak for a Black man like a Black man. No one can tell us, like, even as a Black woman, I'm not always going to be able to understand your emotions and how you feel. So we need people like Dr. Brown riding in a cop car, making sure that, you know, these cops see a different perspective and all that you guys do. That these things are so like just huge and so important that people see people of color in these type of positions. And, you know, lastly, I just want to say when I was watching the presidential debate, the first thing that I thought of is, wow, it's 2020 and we still got three old ass white guys deciding everything for our future. The country is so diverse and we still got three very, very old white guys sitting up here debating, you know, sitting up here talking. It's like, at what point are we going to see women in that seat, Black men in that seat, Hispanic people in that seat, a Muslim person in that seat, so that we can properly represent the whole entire country? You know, like you said, Dr. Simon, our things are not going to change as far as policy as long as the people in power are people that don't understand our struggle. If you don't understand it, then how can you change it? If your goal in life is to minimize it to make you feel comfortable, then how in the world is it ever going to change? So we have to have people in these seats that look different, that have bring different things to the table, not just Black, Hispanic, Muslim, whatever it is, just people of different colors and different, you know, backgrounds that know how to say, okay, this is what represents this person, and has a heart for different types of people. If not, we're going to continue to serve an America that is built for white older men.
Yeah. So Sheena, you're correct. Ellen, I thank you for just giving us this opportunity. I think, you know, 2 points that I would have are to Talo's point. You know, finding a safe space. Zoom provides that opportunity, or virtual platforms provide that opportunity for Black men to do that. The other thing that I would mention is that for parents, you have to model the behaviors and model what you would want your children to experience, right? So to your son's grandfather, right? Like kneeling down and getting to his level and say, no, like, tell me what's going on here. is so important. Completely understand Ellen, your husband saying, hey, don't cry here, right? But to you kind of pushing back and saying, no, like let him experience that. What does that mean, right? Let him emote, let him understand that. I think it's important that we give kids the space to have emotions. And I generally tell people, like, at the end of the evening, like, you should kind of talk to your kids and say, like, what was good about today, what was bad about today. So that they are regularly checking in with themselves, so that way they become the adult that is mindful and can have those conversations. So again, I just thank you guys for the platform to be able to talk about this.
Yeah,
Super
I
grateful.
think sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Italo.
No,
That's
that's okay.
a generational thing, right? Because my dad was a white guy and he didn't show emotion either. You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of attention. Hopefully, we need, a lot of attention paid to the fact that I know a lot of Black men grew up without a father. My husband grew up without a father in his life, and so, but even it is a generational thing because, like I said, my dad, never shed a tear, never, showed any emotion, didn't talk. So, it's not just a Black issue; it's a generational issue. So hopefully, these kids will pay attention and and just be more open, I guess.
Yeah, so I really do appreciate you guys, and I think that this is a perspective that we haven't seen yet. So me and Ellen are super excited because
Happy.
No, it's just cathartic, man. I really appreciated you guys giving us the stage to talk about this stuff. As providers, we don't get the opportunity to sometimes share these thoughts.
Right.
We haven't gotten to a place where even our own workspaces are open enough for us to talk about this. So thank you all.
Right. And I don't know about you guys, but after certain things you see on the news, I be going into work wishing I had a hoodie or something. Like, don't speak to me, don't say nothing, don't do nothing. I got my mask, my shield, don't look at me. And
as soon as they put a hood on the white coat, it's all right. Just right over the top, and then with the little part that I can put a mask on the bottom here.
Exactly. So I think that people don't understand sometimes how it is to come from a Black household and feel kind of like, all right, I'm in my space, I'm good in my space, and then have to walk into an environment where you are the minority and have to deal with people making sensitive comments and saying this and saying that. So this platform has been largely therapeutic for me to be able to have an educated conversation with my peers who understand completely what I'm saying. I understand completely what they're saying. And then we're having this conversation that can reach millions of people that feel the same way and can never voice this. These are the conversations that the two Black CNAs have in the break room when everybody else leaves.
Right.
I say this on a lot of, this is our third, is this our third Zoom, Sheena? Yeah. Okay. So I think I've said this on every other one, and I'm going to close it and say it again for anybody in healthcare that is watching this conversation. And these men have been so generous with their thoughts and their feelings and their emotion. If you work in healthcare, reach out to whoever's next to you, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a nurse, whether you haven't had a good relationship before, whether there's tension between you at all. Please understand, Black people in healthcare, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for Black people in healthcare. You all are doing that brilliantly. They're going through a lot. It's not just COVID. There's all this outside violence that they are dealing with and trying to unpack their trauma of being Black and then having to come in and shove that all down and put other people first. So I'm begging you, if you're a white person in the healthcare space and have had trouble with empathy or have trouble seeing things from other points of view, or just tomorrow's a new day. Every day is a day to turn it all around. Every day is a day to turn it all around. What you did yesterday, you don't have to do that today. You can reach out. Just ask someone how they're feeling. Just smile. Just, can you help? Can you do something for someone? What can you do? What can you do to be of service? What can you do to help your fellow human being? Because everybody is fighting a battle and carrying a burden. And I'll tell you right now, for all you white people, we don't know anything about the burden that people of color are carrying. not even this much of it. So if they can deal with what they have to deal with every day, we can certainly deal with doing a little extra work and checking in and lending a hand and seeing what we can do to make their day better. Dr. Italo Brown, Dr. Utibe Essien.
Yes, you got it, Ellen.
And Dr. Kevin Simon. Man, you guys are rock stars. And I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and share all of your brilliant thoughts with us today. I hope we can stay in touch. And I hope this isn't the first conversation we have. I admire all of you so much. You're so incredible. And not just for your scholastic achievements, because those are all pretty amazing, much more than I have, but who you are as men and who you are as human beings. Just putting everybody else before yourself, is something that not everybody does. Most people don't do. So big up to all of you, and go Lakers.
Thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate you. And,
and thanks for supporting women.
Thank you guys.
We're just
yes, thank you.
Women trying to do something. So thanks for supporting us.
No problem.
No, we really appreciate it.
I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge my wife is a fan, and she heard I was gonna possibly have a conversation, and she said, "You better tell her that Dr. Brittany Halford is a fan of Dr. Gray from Grey's Anatomy." Hopefully this makes it on the cut. If it doesn't, I will still say
you did your husbandly duties. Yeah.